Hello and welcome, everyone. Today, we're starting an exciting journey together. In this podcast, we're going to talk about how you can master English speaking in just 30 days. Whether you're an intermediate learner or just starting out, we've got some great tips to help you become more confident when speaking English. So, let's jump right in.
Yes, learning to speak English fluently may sound difficult, but trust me, it's not impossible. It's all about practice, persistence, and using the right methods. Today, we're going to share how you can improve your speaking skills step by step. First, let's talk about one of the most important things, speaking as much as possible.
Exactly. Speaking English every day is key. You don't need to have a long conversation or know all the words. Even just talking for a few minutes can help you get used to using the language. Find small opportunities to speak. For example, when you wake up in the morning, say out loud, "Good morning," or "How's the weather today?"
Yes, even simple sentences can make a big difference. Another thing that helps is repeating what you hear. You can listen to English music, podcasts, or TV shows and repeat phrases or sentences that you hear. It helps you with pronunciation and makes you more comfortable using English.
That's a great idea. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's normal, and it's part of learning. When you speak and make mistakes, you actually learn faster. You'll remember those moments and improve. So let's take the fear out of speaking.
Absolutely. Another important tip is to practice with a partner. This can be a friend, family member, or even someone online who is also learning English. When you have conversations, you're forced to use the language in real-life situations. It doesn't have to be complicated, just simple conversations like asking, "How was your day?" Or "What did you eat for lunch?" can help a lot.
And if you can't find a partner, you can talk to yourself. It might sound funny, but speaking to yourself in English is a great way to practice. For example, you can describe what you're doing as you do it. Say, "I'm cooking dinner," or "I'm going to the store." It helps to keep your mind thinking in English.
Yes, speaking out loud helps you get comfortable with forming sentences and expressing your thoughts in English. Now, let's talk about vocabulary. Learning new words is important for speaking well, but you don't have to memorize big lists of words. Instead, focus on learning the words that you use the most.
Exactly. Think about the words you use in your daily life and start with those. For example, if you often talk about food, learn words related to food. If you like sports, learn sports vocabulary. This way, you'll be able to talk about the things you love, and that makes speaking more fun.
Yes, and once you have those basic words, you can start to connect them into sentences. Learning phrases like "How are you?" or "I'd like a coffee," please helps you feel more natural when speaking. Focus on phrases, not just single words.
Great point, James. Also, don't forget to use English as much as possible in your daily life. For example, if you have a phone or a computer, change the language to English. It's a small change, but it makes a big impact. You'll start to see English everywhere, and it will become more familiar to you.
That's a fantastic tip. You can also use apps or websites to practice speaking. There are so many resources available now, and many of them let you practice speaking with people from all over the world. Just 15 minutes a day can help you build your skills.
Yes, and don't forget to listen to English as much as you can. Listening helps improve your understanding of how words are used and how sentences are structured. You'll pick up the rhythm and sounds of the language, which makes speaking easier.
Right, listening and speaking go hand in hand. Try listening to different types of content news, songs, stories, and imitate what you hear. It's a great way to learn new expressions and improve your accent. All right, let's keep going. In the last part, we talked about the importance of speaking every day, practicing with partners, and focusing on common vocabulary. Now, let's go deeper into another important topic, confidence. A lot of people understand English but are just shy or afraid to speak. They worry about making mistakes, and that stops them from trying. Let's talk about how to build confidence when speaking English.
That's such a good point. Confidence is so important, and sometimes it's the hardest thing to build. One of the best ways to grow your confidence is by starting with small steps. Don't try to have a long, complex conversation right away. Start with short, simple sentences. Say things like, "Hello, how are you?" or "What time is it?" These are easy, everyday sentences, and the more you say them, the more confident you'll feel.
Exactly. Small wins are important. Every time you speak, even if it's just one sentence, you're improving. And it's important to remember that nobody speaks perfectly at first. Even native speakers make mistakes, so don't worry about being perfect. Focus on getting your message across. It's okay if your sentence isn't 100% correct. What's important is that you're trying.
That's right, and another thing that helps with confidence is practice with yourself. This can be a powerful tool. One method is to stand in front of a mirror and practice speaking. Look at yourself and imagine you're having a conversation with someone. It helps you get comfortable with speaking out loud and seeing how you move your mouth when you speak. You'll get used to the way you sound and the way you speak.
Yes, speaking in front of a mirror is a great exercise. You can also record yourself speaking. A lot of people don't like hearing their own voice, but it's such a helpful tool. When you listen to yourself, you can hear what you're doing well and what you might want to improve. Over time, you'll notice that your speaking sounds smoother and more natural.
That's so true. Listening to yourself can also help you become more aware of your pronunciation. If you notice that some words are hard to say, you can practice them over and over. Break them down into smaller parts if needed. For example, a word like comfortable might be tricky, but if you break it into parts, com-for-ta-ble, and say it slowly, it becomes easier to master.
Exactly. Speaking slowly at first is another great way to build confidence. When you speak too quickly, you might get nervous or make more mistakes. It's okay to slow down, take a breath, and think about what you want to say. The more comfortable you get, the faster you'll be able to speak naturally.
That's a great tip. I think it's also important to remember that everyone learns at their own pace. Some people will become fluent faster than others, but that's okay. What's important is that you keep practicing. Don't compare yourself to others. Focus on your own progress and celebrate your improvements, no matter how small they are.
Exactly. Another way to build confidence is to focus on the things you already know. Instead of worrying about what you don't know, use the words and phrases you're comfortable with. For example, if you know how to talk about food, have a conversation about food. If you're good at introducing yourself, practice that. Confidence comes from using the skills you already have.
Yes, and to add to that, positive thinking is key. If you keep telling yourself, "I can't speak English," or "I'm not good at this," it will be harder to improve. But if you say, "I'm learning every day," or "I'm getting better," you'll feel more confident. Changing your mindset can make a big difference in your learning process.
That's so true. A positive attitude makes everything easier. And another helpful tip for building confidence is to set small goals for yourself. For example, you could aim to learn 5 new words each day or have a short conversation with someone by the end of the week. Setting goals gives you something to work toward, and every time you achieve a goal, you'll feel more confident.
Yes, setting goals helps keep you motivated too. And make sure to practice speaking in different situations. Don't just practice in your home or with your teacher. Try speaking English when you're outside, maybe at a restaurant or when you're shopping. You could even try ordering food in English if you're in an English-speaking environment. The more situations you experience, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
That's a great point. You can also practice online if you don't have the chance to speak English in your daily life. There are websites and apps where you can talk to people from around the world. These platforms are perfect for practicing conversations in a real setting.
Yes, technology is such a helpful tool for learning. But another thing we shouldn't forget is the importance of body language when speaking. Sometimes when we're nervous, we tend to close off, maybe we cross our arms or avoid eye contact. But if you practice open body language like standing tall, smiling, and making eye contact, it can actually help you feel more confident when you speak.
Absolutely. Body language communicates confidence too. Even if you're not feeling very confident inside, your body language can give the impression that you are. And when you act confident, you start to feel it too. It's a bit like tricking your brain into thinking, "Hey, I can do this."
Exactly, and don't forget to breathe. When we're nervous, we often forget to take deep breaths, and that can make us feel even more stressed. Take your time, breathe deeply, and speak slowly. There's no rush. The person you're speaking to will understand if you take a moment to think or pause.
Yes, deep breathing can really calm your nerves. And remember, every time you speak English, you're getting better. It doesn't matter if it's a short conversation or a long one. The more you speak, the more natural it will become.
Let's dive even deeper into what it takes to speak English fluently in 30 days. By now, we've talked a lot about practice, confidence, and setting small goals, but another key to mastering English is to make it a part of your everyday routine. This means integrating English into your daily life, not just when you're studying or practicing.
That's such a good point. If you think about it, learning a language is a bit like learning a sport or playing a musical instrument. The more you do it, the better you get. So, it's really important to immerse yourself in English as much as possible. One way to do that is to change your surroundings. For example, if you can, put sticky notes on objects in your home with their English names. That way, you'll see English words everywhere.
Yes, and that's such an easy thing to do. It keeps English in front of you all the time. Another thing you can try is to switch your entertainment to English. If you like watching movies or TV shows, try watching them in English. At first, it might be hard to understand everything, but that's okay. Start with subtitles, and over time, you'll start to pick up more words and phrases.
Exactly. And if movies or TV shows feel too fast, you can always start with YouTube videos or podcasts like this one. They're often shorter and easier to follow. Plus, there are so many videos made specifically for English learners. You can choose videos that match your level so you don't feel overwhelmed.
And don't forget about music. Listening to English songs is a great way to expose yourself to the language. Not only is it fun, but it also helps you learn pronunciation and new vocabulary. You can even try to sing along. It's okay if you don't understand all the words at first. Over time, you'll pick up more and more.
That's a great tip. Music helps with rhythm too. Every language has its own natural rhythm, and by listening to songs, you can get used to how English sounds and flows. Plus, it's something you can do anytime while cooking, exercising, or even commuting. The key is to make sure you're surrounded by English.
Yes, the more English you hear, the more natural it will start to feel. Now, let's talk about another important element thinking in English. This might sound a bit advanced, but it's actually one of the best ways to improve your fluency. Often, learners translate from their native language to English in their heads, and that can slow down the speaking process. If you start thinking in English, you can speak more quickly and naturally.
That's right. At first, it's normal to translate in your head, but the goal is to move away from that. One technique that helps is to start labeling things in English in your mind. For example, when you're walking down the street, try thinking, "That's a tree," or "I see a dog." It's a simple exercise, but it forces your brain to use English directly without translating.
Yes, and you can take it a step further by narrating your day in English. Talk to yourself in your mind or even out loud. Say things like, "I'm going to make breakfast," or "I need to finish my homework." This helps you get used to forming sentences in English without needing to stop and think too much.
Exactly. Another great way to practice thinking in English is to ask yourself questions throughout the day. For example, if you're at the store, ask yourself, "What do I need to buy?" Or, "How much does this cost?" Answer the questions in English, even if it's just in your head. This kind of mental practice helps you prepare for real-life conversations.
That's a great tip. And when you ask yourself questions, try to answer in full sentences. Instead of just thinking, "I need milk," try saying, "I need to buy milk because I'm going to make breakfast." The more complete your sentences are, the more natural it will feel when you speak to someone else.
Yes, practicing full sentences is so important because it helps you get comfortable with grammar without even realizing it. Speaking of grammar, let's talk about how you can improve your grammar skills without getting caught up in rules. I know a lot of learners feel frustrated because they want to speak correctly, but grammar rules can be confusing.
That's so true. Grammar is important. But the good news is that you don't have to memorize all the rules to speak well. One thing that helps is to learn grammar through examples instead of focusing too much on technical terms. For example, instead of trying to remember what a present continuous tense is, just remember that when you're talking about something happening right now, you say things like, I'm eating or she is working.
Exactly. Grammar can feel easier when you see it in action. Try to notice patterns in the language as you listen and speak. For example, you might notice that when you're talking about things you do every day, you use the simple present tense like, I go to school or she eats breakfast. And when you're talking about something you're doing right now, you use am or is, like I am studying.
Yes, and over time, these patterns will become natural. Another helpful technique is to practice speaking with different tenses. For example, if you're talking about your weekend plans, you can practice using the future tense by saying, I will go to the park, or we are going to watch a movie. Then try switching to the past tense. Yesterday, I went to the park, or last night, we watched a movie.
That's such a good exercise. Speaking in different tenses helps you get used to using the correct forms naturally. And remember, you don't need to be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. The most important thing is that you're communicating. If someone understands what you're saying, that's what matters.
Exactly, and over time, you'll notice that your mistakes will become fewer and fewer. One more thing that can really help with mastering English in 30 days is to immerse yourself in conversation. If you can, try to have longer conversations in English. It doesn't have to be with a native speaker, just someone who's also learning can be great practice.
Yes, conversation exchanges are a great way to do this. You can find language exchange partners online or in your local community. The idea is to spend some time speaking in English and then sometimes speaking in the other person's language. It's a win-win because both of you get to practice. Even 10 or 15 minutes of conversation a day can make a huge difference.
And when you're having these conversations, try to focus on fluency, not accuracy. Fluency means being able to keep a conversation going without too many pauses. Don't worry if your sentences aren't perfect or if you're missing a word. Just keep talking. The more you speak, the smoother your sentences will become.
That's such good advice. And don't be afraid to ask for help if you get stuck. If you don't know a word, ask the person you're talking to. Say, what's the word for? Or how do I say in English? This is a great way to learn new vocabulary during a conversation, and it's completely normal.
Yes, asking questions is part of learning. And sometimes, the person you're speaking with can even teach you new phrases or correct your mistakes in a helpful way. But don't get discouraged if someone corrects you. It's all part of the process. Just remember that every conversation is practice, and practice is what will help you reach your goal of mastering English in 30 days.
Exactly. Every conversation, no matter how short or simple, brings you closer to fluency. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and remember that every little bit helps.
Now, let's talk about one of the most important parts of mastering English in 30 days, staying motivated and consistent. It's easy to feel excited at the beginning when everything is new, but after a week or two, some people start to feel tired or lose motivation. How do we keep going, especially when we're learning something as challenging as a new language?
That's a really good point. Learning a language takes time, and sometimes it can feel like progress is slow. But staying motivated is key. One way to do that is by remembering why you're learning English. Maybe you want to travel, get a better job, or connect with more people. Whatever your reason, keep it in mind every day. Write it down if you need to and put it somewhere you'll see it. That can remind you to keep pushing forward, even when it gets tough.
Exactly, knowing your purpose is so important. And speaking of keeping track, another helpful thing is to track your progress. Sometimes, when we're in the middle of learning something, we don't notice how much we've improved. But if you keep a journal or a notebook, you can write down the new words and phrases you've learned, or the conversations you've had in English. Then, when you look back after a week or two, you'll see how far you've come.
That's a great tip. Tracking your progress helps you see that you're moving forward, even if it feels slow. And don't forget to reward yourself when you reach small goals. Maybe you learned 20 new words this week or had your first conversation in English. Celebrate that. Give yourself a small reward, like watching a movie in English or treating yourself to something you enjoy. These little rewards can help keep you motivated.
I love that idea. Rewards can make the learning process more fun. Speaking of fun, it's also important to enjoy the journey. Learning English doesn't have to be all hard work. Find ways to make it fun for yourself. If you enjoy sports, read articles, or watch videos about your favorite sport in English. If you love cooking, find recipes in English and try making them. The more you connect English with things you already love, the more enjoyable it will be.
Absolutely. Enjoying the process makes a huge difference. And another way to stay motivated is to change up your learning routine so you don't get bored. For example, one day you can focus on listening to a podcast and the next day you can practice speaking. Maybe you spend some time writing in English and the next day you watch a video. Keeping your routine fresh and exciting helps prevent burnout.
Yes, variety is key. If you always do the same thing, it's easy to feel bored or stuck. But when you mix things up, learning feels new and interesting again. Another great tip for staying motivated is to find a study partner or a group of people who are also learning English. That way, you can support each other and celebrate each other's progress. Plus, it's a lot more fun when you have someone to learn with.
That's such a good idea. Having a learning buddy or group can make a huge difference. You can help each other stay on track, and it's motivating to see other people working hard, too. If you can't find someone in your area, try looking online. There are so many communities of people learning English who would love to practice with you.
Yes, the internet makes it so easy to connect with others, no matter where you are. Speaking of connecting, let's talk about one more important tip for mastering English in 30 days. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. We touched on this a little earlier, but I think it's worth talking about more because it's one of the biggest challenges learners face.
You're right, fear of making mistakes can really hold people back. But the truth is, making mistakes is part of the learning process. In fact, the more mistakes you make, the faster you'll improve. When you make a mistake, it's a chance to learn something new. And most people are kind and understanding. They won't judge you for getting something wrong.
Exactly. No one expects you to be perfect. When you're learning a language, mistakes are completely normal. In fact, native speakers will often appreciate that you're making an effort to speak in their language. They'll usually try to help you or encourage you, rather than criticize you. So instead of worrying about being perfect, focus on communicating. Even if your grammar isn't perfect or you forget a word, the important thing is that you're trying to connect and express yourself.
That's such an important mindset. It's better to speak imperfectly than not speak at all. Remember, fluency doesn't mean you never make mistakes. It means you're comfortable speaking and communicating, even if you're still learning. And the more you practice, the more natural it will feel.
Yes, and speaking of practice, it's important to find opportunities to speak as much as possible. We've talked about practicing with friends or online, but there are other ways to practice, too. For example, you can join online language exchange groups where people from different countries practice speaking with each other. Or if you live in a place where English is spoken, try to use English in your everyday life, whether it's ordering food, asking for directions, or chatting with someone at a cafe.
That's right. And even if you don't live in an English-speaking country, there are so many ways to practice. You can use voice chat apps or participate in online forums. You can also join virtual events or English-speaking clubs where people gather online to talk about different topics. These are great opportunities to practice your speaking skills in a relaxed, friendly environment.
Yes, and the more you put yourself out there, the easier it gets. At first, it might feel a little scary, but with each conversation, you'll feel more comfortable. And remember, you don't have to do everything perfectly. Even just showing up and trying is a success. Every conversation is practice, and every bit of practice brings you closer to fluency.
Absolutely, speaking regularly is the fastest way to improve, and you don't need to wait until you feel ready or perfect to start. The truth is, you'll never feel completely ready. You just have to jump in and do it, and the more you do, the more natural it becomes.
Exactly, and don't forget to have fun with it. Learning English can open up so many new opportunities, whether it's meeting new people, traveling, or even advancing in your career. Enjoy the journey and remind yourself of all the exciting things that learning English will bring into your life.
That's a great reminder. Learning a language isn't just about memorizing words and grammar, it's about connecting with people and the world. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. And don't forget, the goal is progress, not perfection.
Yes, and with dedication, consistency, and a positive attitude, anyone can make great progress in just 30 days. Remember to set small goals, celebrate your successes, and keep practicing every day.
Exactly. And before we wrap up, we just want to remind everyone that learning English is a journey, and each step you take brings you closer to fluency. So keep going, stay motivated, and don't give up.
And if you enjoyed this podcast and found it helpful, make sure to subscribe to our channel and share it with your family and friends. We're here to help you every step of the way, so feel free to leave comments with your questions or topics you'd like us to cover next.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Goodbye, and keep practicing your English every day.